this video, I'm going to go over color. There's a few different uses for color. You can use color in your background, for a border, and also text color. Now, a lot of times when you're dealing with color, you're working with the background, so I think that's going to be the easiest thing. Color can be adjusted in the same way on each property. And there's multiple ways of doing this. You can type the color, just like this. You can also do a hex code, which looks sort of like this. This would be red. Hex code can be 3 characters or 3 digits, or it can also be 6 digits. And I'll go over a little bit of how these are constructed, so they don't just look like a random string of characters. Other way is you can also do an RGB like this. You can see that's the same. There's also rgba, which adds an alpha channel. You can see that's red again. So you can see there's many ways to form red. And really, which way is the best is really up to you. It really depends on what you're doing. So let's go over just maybe some of the colors you can use. If you're under, you just go on Inspect Element, you can actually see a bunch of the ones that they suggest for you. And we can actually just try a few and just see kind of what they actually do for us. You can also just use the arrows and just go down the list. You can see that there's a bunch of colors that CSS just gives you out of the box, which is nice for if you want to do quick changes. Now, the way I prefer doing colors is with hex codes. And I have a bit of them memorized. Like this one's red, for this one would be green, this would be blue. And really what you're doing is, to fully explain this, I'll go into here so I can make the text a little bit bigger so it's a little bit easier to read, is let's say you're doing a hex code like this. If it's 3, the first digit is all your red values. The second digit is your green values. And the third digit is your blue. If there's 6, like this would be your red, this would be your green, and this would be your blue. And really the difference between the two is that there's many more options. And you can really tell this with gray. With gray, everything will be the same. So let's say for an option of 333, which is I think a nice color of dark gray, and I use that a lot. Let's say you do 666, it's going to be slightly lighter. If you do 999, it'll be another shade. Now let's compare 2 of them, and I'm going to do another one that's going to overwrite this, and I'm going to do AAA, which is the next digit up. The way hex works is it's instead of a decimal system, it's a hexadecimal system, which means there's 16 different options. So the order would go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then after 9 it goes A, B, C, D, E, and F. That's why white is FFF. And a black is 0, 0, 0, since there's no color. But with 9, let's say you want to do this, and now I'm going to go over and make it AAA. You can see there's a difference between the two. But what if you want something halfway in between? You can do a background of right in between by doing 9, and then right in between would be, let's say, another 9. I did a little too many. We can actually try a few things, you can see there's a slight difference between the two. And so if you want to do very specific color changes, you can see that this goes like very, very subtle differences because you're adjusting it by a 16th on each, or not a 16th, 16 times 16 would be 256. So you're adjusting it by 1/256th of a degree for each color. So you can see that it's a very, very small difference. So that means that this is going to have 256 times 256 times 256 options. So if you just did a little multiplication, you can see that this gets over 16 million. Whereas the other option where you're just doing 16 on each one, where you only have one digit, you only get about 4,000 colors. So really depending on what you're doing, if you're using just white and black, just grays, I think the 3 is better. It's also less characters, so that means like it's going to be slightly less to load. And that's always nice. So that's a little bit of explanation on the hexadecimals, or hex system. The next one would be the background for RGB. And this is where you're actually putting the digits in manually. Now, in RGB, the best example is really to go into Photoshop for this. I opened up the wrong thing for 1 second. And you can go into the color selector. Now, you can see in the color selector, right in here, it gives you a few different things. The hexadecimal is down here. But there's also the RGB values that are right in here. You can see how these change as you go. So you can also use these RGB values in here. So let's copy these into place to get, let's say, let's go to a full red. You can see that this is like a 255, just as I put before, with a 0 for green, 0 for blue, and so on. You can actually watch these change a little bit. Now, if you were converting this to hexadecimal, you would get the same thing. Because 1/8 is the same as 24 in a binary system. So it allows you to work in 2 different ways. The next thing in here would be an rgba. And rgba allows you to control the opacity on different things. This example is a little bit hard to show since we don't have a nice background in here. So we can actually load a separate website. And we can just go into maybe here. Actually, let's load my my current website, Brodsky Designs, and we can see how you can make the opacity really come into play. So I use the text layer on these, but let's see what happens if I instead make the color opacity. So rgba, and you can see that we want it to be a, let's make it just a white for the demo. You can see that this white, if it's a 1, you can see that it's a white. But if I control this between a different value, at 0 you can see it's completely transparent. So this can really come into effect if you want to put a slight transparency on a background or on a text layer. Really depends on what you're doing, but it can really come into play and really help you. Now, when it comes to optimizing your CSS, what is best? And really, this is a preference in a lot of ways, because it theoretically can work the same. But now, let's say you want to color something black. What's the best way of doing this? Because you have black, you also have 0, 0, 0, you have 0, 0 with 6 zeros, you have RGB, and you have rgba. Now, really, what's the best way of doing this? And I would argue that this is the best way. They're all going to give you the same results, but the difference is this has the least amount of characters. We have 5 characters here. We have 4 characters here. 7 characters. We have 11 characters here, and we have 13 characters there. So if you're talking about optimizing your CSS, you want it to load as fast as possible, and 4 characters is going to load slightly faster than 11. And I know it's cutting off little corners, but when you create your entire CSS sheet and you save 3 characters for every time you write a color or a background, it actually can really add up to be a big difference and really help you to have a slightly faster load time. And it really does all add up at the end of the day. Anyway, that's really it. And I hope this helped you. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.